I figured it would be just about time for me to start talking about koalas. Talk about pandas. These animals are, I kind of bunch them in the same group as they are poster childs for being endangered because, well, they're cute. And people care about cute animals and they don't care about not cute animals. Um, uh, Let me preface this by saying that koalas, in and of themselves, they're animals. So like there's only so much I can actually say. Like if I make fun of them, don't take it personally because people take this stuff personally. I just like making jokes. And koalas are another one of those animals that, if it wasn't for intervention, the type of lifestyle they live, they're so niche that they're not going to be around that long unless they make a major change, which they literally have designed themselves not to be able to make a major change. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, koalas are both endangered and so plentiful they're causing problems. How did that happen? They are the poster child for imminent extinction at risk of deforestation, climate change, bushfires. Yet, where I live in South Australia, they are so abundant they are in danger of eating themselves out of house and home. Koalas present something of a paradox. Okay, blah, blah, blah. How is it that a koalas can simultaneously be declared endangered in some areas and yet required repopulation management in others, despite the complex factors influencing koala populations? The ultimate cause of both problems may be, well, the same: habitat loss and fragmentation. Think about this. Um, Wolves are a great example of this. There are some parts of the world where wolves have never gone extinct. They've always been there. And they're in plentiful numbers in some spots. They're like literally doing fine. In other parts of the world, literally, it makes the news that there's a wolf found in that area. Like, oh, these wolves were reintroduced into this spot because they were killed off and there were none left. That's just how it works. Certain areas of the world stay not as destroyed as others. And those animals that live in those areas tend to do better in the areas that aren't destroyed. And so, like, shoot, there's so many animals that are like this. Bears are like this. I mean, shoot, there was just a wolverine that was spotted in California. There haven't been any wolverines in California at least spotted in over 100 years. So, like, yeah, these animals can move freely, and in some areas they become extinct, even though they're plentiful in others. It's just because the habitat loss. Cougars are another great example of this. Panthers, whatever you want to call them. There are certain areas out west where there are plenty of them, and they've never gone extinct. Yet here in Florida, technically it's not the same species, but it's a panther. It's a big cat. Like, their habitat is almost completely destroyed, and there's only a small fraction of the population yet, and there's none along the East Coast. So genetically, they might be a little different, but like it's still the same big cat. And it used to cover the entire country. Now it doesn't. Despite the complex factors influencing koala populations, the ultimate cause of problems may be be the same: habitat loss and fragmentation. Koalas are native to and entirely dependent on the Australian eucalypt forests that stretch down the eastern seaboard of Australia in a hook from the tropical forest in the north down and around the bottom southeastern corner coast of the country. These forests and their koalas once stretched all the way across the south and far west coast. But as the climate began to dry around 100,000 years ago, the forests retreated towards the eastern edge of the continent. The giant megafaunal cousins of the koalas, like diprotodons, disappeared in this period, and koalas too retreated from the west and inland areas. And from most of South Australia, genetic markers revealed that around 30 to 40,000 years ago, koalas suffered from a catastrophic population crash, coinciding with the megafaunal extinction around the world. This was not the only time koala populations have crashed, nor the only time they have recovered. Species with small ranges are often more at risk of extinction. Although koalas are relatively widespread species, they are also extremely widely dispersed and rarely found in high densities. This might put isolated populations at risk of extinction, Park managers typically consider 3 or 4 koalas per hectare the maximum sustainable number without risking forest damage. Even in the most productive forest, in the more inland arid forest, there can be maybe as few as 1 koala per 247 acres, 100 hectares. Holy shit, I didn't realize that. So basically, koalas eat so much of one thing that too many koalas, 3 koalas in like a really well producing forest in 1 hectare, it would, how much is a hectare compared to an acre? I don't know. But it's a super, like they eat so much, that's insane numbers. So their habitat is being destroyed, and it's been retreating for the past 100,000 years. Their numbers have been dwindling since then. And yes, there have been ups and downs, but like listen to that statement. Before we had anything to do with it, their populations were already being destroyed because the only plant that they eat, which is toxic to basically everything, and they have to build up the gut biome by eating their parents' poop, is that the eucalyptus is being destroyed because Australia is drying out. That's been happening for a long time. That has nothing to do with us. And yes, the wildfires have destroyed a lot of their areas, but they're becoming fragmented because they are specialists and they need so much food per animal that it's not like they can have a high dense population in a certain area. They can only have 3 or 4 per acre in the most densest populated areas. That's not sustainable. We're going to be able to, we're going to be the ones keeping these guys alive, basically. This relative scarcity does not seem to be a recent phenomenon compared to kangaroos and possums. Koala bones are scarce in the fossil record and less commonly feature in pre-colonial indigenous rock art or artifacts, despite their great cultural significance to many of the east and south coast indigenous communities. Nonetheless, European settlement in Australia in 1788 certainly had a massive impact on koala populations. Altered fire regimes, broad-scale deforestation and land clearance, and international fur trade, as well as introduction to new forms of chlamydia in livestock, all had a significant impact on koala populations. Massive bushfires in the 1850s through the 1930s saw koalas declared extinct in southern states of Australia, New South Wales, and Victoria. Remnant populations clung on here and there, and locals were so worried about their survival that in the late 1890s, a handful of koalas was transported to the French and Phillip Islands near Melbourne. The koalas weren't doing much better further north in Queensland. Hunting them for fur was officially sanctioned until 1927, with millions of pelts being exported to the fur markets in the US and the UK. Despite growing campaigns to ban hunting, the export of koala fur didn't really end until an appeal was made by the U.S. President Herbert Hoover, who banned their import in 1930. Ultimately, the tiny population of koalas transported to French islands saved southern koala populations. From the safety of their disease-free refuge, the French island population thrived, and very soon animals had to be transported onto other islands in mainland Victoria. A small population was transported to the Kangaroo Islands off the coast of southern Australia in 1930. This population grew so large that they were moved to the forested hills around Adelaide, where they are now one of the largest and densest populations of koalas in Australia. Today, the southern koalas across the state of Victoria and South Australia, almost entirely descended from translocated French island animals, have boomed to an estimated 650,000 individuals, but their fragmented and disconnected forest means they cannot expand into surrounding forests. They are trapped on actual islands of forest islands, rapidly eating their way through the food supply, and until they starve or can be transported elsewhere, their populations therefore require management. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's the same situation for a lot of other animals, sadly. I mean, like, I'm going to bring up panthers again. The panthers we have here are not true Florida panthers anymore. They were mixed with Texas panthers, which are a different subspecies. They were a little bigger. And so now, like, the gene pool is like super low. I wonder if it's the same thing here, where like the ones from the south and the north were different genetically, but then they mixed together and now they're just like one species. I don't know if there's multiple species. It doesn't mention that I can see. But another thing with koalas is their diseases. They they get the clap. A new vaccine could protect marsupials from sexually transmitted disease, which can lead to blindness, infertility, and death. So basically, koalas are mean. They're not. They're not nice. They scream. They're vicious little beasts, and they sleep most of the day. But they have chlamydia, high rates of it, and it can cause infertility, which is not good for a koala, which already has a hard time, surviving and living. You don't need all this. And they're vaccinating them, containing the spread. Like humans, chlamydia is spread by sexual transmission, as well as from mother to child during pregnancy. That's rough. But yeah, there's a lot of animals with chlamydia as well, and it was not passed through people to them. Luckily, at least as far as I'm aware. You hardly see any babies. Well, yeah. So basically, no, thank you, Live Science. So basically, they're a specialized animal that were already on the way downhill. People came into the picture and really put a beating on them, and now they're what they survive on is basically almost gone. And because they're so specialized, they can't even have high density and population in these areas. And they're on their way out, and hopefully they do survive. I mean, I don't want any animal to go extinct. They are, they're kind of cute, I guess. I've never been the biggest fan of koalas, but I don't hate them. I just never really had, any run-ins with them except for at the zoo. And it's just like pandas, where it's like if we left them alone, they would probably go extinct. But who knows? What do you guys think? Let me know down below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know if send me any articles you might want me to go over. I always put my email in the description down below, so you can send those to me, or join the Discord and go through the Patreon and join the Discord and just tell me there. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Stay wild.